Pigskin Preview, WQSU's live sports talk show produced exclusively by Susquehanna University communication students. Tonight, we'll preview local high school and college football games live from Buffalo Wild Wings. Right now, it's the WQSU Sports Corner.
Welcome back for another week of PA Pigskin Preview on 88.9 WQSU. I'm Brai, Tate, and accompanied with me tonight is Matt Kaufman. We have an awesome show for you tonight with Southern Columbia High School head coach Jim Roth, followed by Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel, then Susquehanna defensive lineman Brian Layton, and ending our night with our roundtable discussion joined by AJ Knorr. First, we'll start off with a man who needs no introduction, Pennsylvania's most seasoned head coach, Jim Roth. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Once again, Coach Roth is in his 42nd season as head coach of the Tigers. Never had a losing season, and after the last season, you had an 87% winning percentage. How do you stay so passionate about coaching and inspire these athletes after all this time, 4 decades?
Well, we've just had a good program, and a lot of people have played a role in it. I've had a lot of dedicated, loyal assistants over the years, and so we just have built something that we had success with, and we've never changed a whole lot. We've adjusted things over the years and tried to keep up with the times, and you tweak a little bit here and there as far as schemes and so forth, but it's just something I enjoy doing, and as long as my health permits. I get asked all the time about how much longer I'm going to do it, and I say I'm at the point now where it's 1 year at a time, so that's how I look at it.
You mentioned those dedicated, loyal assistants. You've had a couple of those assistant coaches with you for a while. Andy Mills, 46 years at Southern. Mike Johnston, 30 years. Brandon Tross, 16 years, just to name a couple. How important is that staff stability to coaching this team?
It's huge in high school football. I mean, I think it's important at any level, but obviously when you look at major college and the NFL, it's a different thing there because it's their livelihood, so people come and go, and if you're successful at those levels, your coordinators are gone because they get hired as head coaches. In high school, it's easier to keep guys around, although it's not as easy as it used to be, just because in this day and age, there's some challenges that are greater than they used to be. It's a little more difficult at times, and so some coaches won't stay with it. They'll get out just because they don't want to put up with the time and some of the issues that you have to deal with for a very, very small amount of pay. But that's where we've been fortunate is to have guys that have been loyal and dedicated to the program and really love coaching at Southern Columbia and love the program. And so it's extremely important because it's one of the things that it gives you a comfort zone puts you in a comfort zone as a head coach to have assistants that kind of know what you're going to do and what they're going to do, and everybody's on the same page, but also the players see the same coaches there year after year, and that really helps. That continuity is real important in high school. All you have to do is look around, and a lot of the high schools that are struggling over the years, it's one of the reasons is because of constant coaching changes.
Mm-hmm. Building that bond and credibility, not just with the head coach, but also the players. And I want to highlight that last season you became the first coach in Pennsylvania and one of 5 coaches in the country to win 500 games, and just some of that success over the last 4 decades in your position. Since the start of the PIAA playoffs in 1988, the Tigers have competed in 22 of 34 state finals and winning 14 of those. What do you think is I was going to ask you what the key to that consistency is, but you already answered that. The coaches. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, the community is extremely important. When you build a program and you have success, it's probably easier to build it And when I went there, in the first couple of years I was at Southern Columbia, we reached a point where we had lost 27 games in a row. And this is an interesting note. So when we broke that losing streak of 27 games, we actually had a day off of school for winning a single football game, which is unheard of. But yeah, so once you build that program and the community buys into it, and the parents and the adults and the community is excited about it, your kids, the kids in the community grow up in an environment where they become excited about it. So it just kind of feeds, the program feeds, the young kids, and it feeds that success to continue into the future, as long as we as coaches kind of do our part, and put the time in and the work in, and make sure that the players are putting the time and the effort in, and it just all comes together. And the thing that what we're probably most proud about is not even the amount of titles or trips to the state finals, but more of in a general sense, just having such a long period of continued success, the consistency over many, many years, over decades. That's the thing that we're probably the proudest of, just to be able to perform and run a program at a high level for such a long time.
Mm-hmm. The game of football has changed a little bit. Kids now have changed a little bit. What do you think has been the hardest part to adapt over the last time the amount of time that you've been coaching? I feel like I just keep saying 4 decades. But what do you think is the hardest challenge that you've had to adapt to?
It's probably the difference in the kids that we see coming into the program, and really even at the younger levels, when they started in our junior high program. And today our society, the young kids just don't go out and play sports on their own, like in the playgrounds or in the fields in neighborhoods and things like that. They're not required as often to maybe have the kind of work ethic that kids had at one time. So a lot of things have changed in terms of the way kids perceive work and responsibility and discipline and some of those areas, and that's been a difference. And you talk to any teacher in the schools, and they will pretty much say the same thing. So it's a matter of trying to get the players to, and we've been successful at this, fortunately, get them to buy into our program and our philosophy and doing things our way, and developing that work ethic and discipline and dedication that you need if you're going to have sustained success over a long period of time.
And last season, the team went 7-5. That's kind of, quote unquote, uncharacteristic for this Southern team that we've mentioned all those accolades before. You had a young team. What did your staff, your players, kind of take away from last season and learn from last season to get to this point?
Yeah, it was a very disappointing for us and for our standards, and just looking at our past record. But I think we handled it properly. I mean, as far as coaches, we certainly weren't happy with the lack of success last year. There were some programs that would be happy with 7 wins, but we weren't. At any rate, I think the players handled it the right way. They seemed to be more motivated in the offseason. The work ethic was there, and they were very determined to come back and have a much better year, and that's what we've been able to do. So I think everybody kind of bought into the idea that it was a disappointment, and we handled the adversity the proper way to come back a much stronger team this year.
Mm-hmm. And now we will get into this season. So last week you had a 21-14 win over Mifflinburg. How have you seen this group grow over the last 8 weeks, from that week 1 loss to Wyomissing, also another good football team?
Yeah, I think we had high expectations coming into the season, and we played a very good Wyomissing team in the opener, who's a Quad A state power, a bigger school than us, and they're still currently undefeated. at any rate, we didn't handle that situation real well, and I think our players just became a little tentative, especially on the defensive side of the ball in that game. And so it was a learning experience, and I know we're a better team from playing in that game. But I think from that point on, we've worked hard on really almost like our approach and attitude, especially on the defensive side, because that's where we struggled the most in the opener. And we've continuously, I think, improved over the next 5 or 6 weeks since then to play much better defensively. And that culminated this last Friday with a win over a real explosive Mifflinburg team, and holding them to 2 scores was a major accomplishment, and that's what allowed us to win the football game. But that's the specific area that we, I think, really and made some strides since the beginning of the year.
And then we'll go talk about your defense first. So it's a couple players. Senior Ethan Mikowski, 28 tackles, 9 for loss, 2 sacks. Junior Jaden Carter, 15 tackles, 3 for loss. Junior Chase Williams, 43 tackles, 17 for loss, 4 sacks. Junior Blaze Kissinger, and senior John Quinton. You said about your defense has grown a lot. What was your focus for the defense going into this season?
Really, the linebacking core was the least experienced group on our team overall. And we lost a few guys defensively. We had almost everybody coming back on offense. But our main focus was the defensive front, because my experience is that if the defensive front plays well, particularly your front four, we run a 4-4 scheme, so we have 4 down linemen. If you have a real strong front four, everything else falls into place. I mean, that's gonna enable you to play a good run defense. And then this particular group, fortunately, is also good against the pass. There's some athleticism there and quickness. So this is a year where we don't necessarily have to blitz a lot to get pressure on the quarterback. We can just have our front four rush and still get pressure. So it all starts with them. So that was really the focus, to have a strong front four. And then those young linebackers, it makes life easier for them. If your defensive line is playing well, they're not getting pushed around. Much easier for those linebackers to gain experience, get acclimated with their jobs and their roles, and that's kind of how things have fallen into place over the course of the season.
And then now we'll go into your offense. You have quarterback Aiden Hockenbrock. He has thrown for 613 yards and 8 touchdowns. How have you seen him grow command of this offense?
Yeah, Aiden started last year as a sophomore, and he's just played with a lot of poise right from the beginning. And through his experience of being a second-year starter, he just seems more comfortable with everything that he does. We haven't thrown the ball a whole lot this year. Some of that is due to certain game situations that we were in, and just what we needed to do as far as game time things and what was best at the time during the game. But at any rate, he continues to improve, and the area where it's really noticeable this year is the fact that he's running the ball really well. He's had now he doesn't have a ton of yards, but it's one of those where we use it a lot as the element of surprise. Anytime your quarterback runs, it's an added dimension, and he's run the ball a lot better. So he's actually become a much more complete quarterback when you look at run and pass, and that's probably the area that he's improved in the most is when we call on him to run the ball.
Maybe not passing as much, but certainly running enough. You have senior running back Braden Andrews, senior running back Caden Hopper, junior Joey Williams, sophomore Grady Garcia, and adding all that up, they have a total yards of 1,407. How many more Garcias are there?
He's the last one.
Okay.
Yeah,
but how valuable is having that balance of the run game?
Yeah, we run we use a 3 running back system, which is unique in this day and age to begin with. But then we have a 4th guy, Caden Hopper, who we rotate in there. So we literally use 4 guys. And then, as I mentioned, we run 8 in some. So that's one of the keys, I think, to our success this year is we have a lot of balance in the running game. So when we play a team, they can't really focus on one or even two guys because we're spreading the ball around a lot. Braden Andrews. We have a number of Aidens and Bradens on our team.
It rhymes.
Common names in this day and age. But anyhow, Braden Andrews, who was our leading rusher last year, has been our leading rusher again, and he's had a phenomenal season. Probably one of the best backs we've had in years in terms of yards after contact. He gets a lot of extra yards. He's not a big guy, but he's very strong. He's elusive, and he's had big returns on kicks and punts, so he's also a very good kick returner. So he's kind of the tone setter, and then the rest of the guys get their share of carries to give us that balance and to complement things. So it's been a good effort, and we'll try to maintain a lot of balance here through the second or the latter part of the season also.
And we'll move into your passing. So you have junior receiver Blaze Kissinger, 7 receptions, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. Junior tight end Jace
Malakowski.
Oh, okay. 11 receptions for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. How have they helped this offense as well?
They were our 2 top receivers last year, so they both return. And again, their numbers aren't huge as far as number of receptions, but when they're called on, they're doing an outstanding job. Blaze is mainly a split. Well, Blaze is a split end full time. He also plays in the secondary, but he was our leading receiver last year. He has good speed. He runs good routes, and got a little stronger and a little more physical in the offseason. So there's times this year where he's getting more yards after catch. Jace Malakowski is an outstanding tight end who's also a very good run blocker, but we actually split him out and use him as a wide receiver also, because he has enough speed to play on the outside. And he gives us that physical presence out there at 6'3", over 200 pounds, where he can get the extra yards after catches also. So those 2 guys have been real consistent and dependable when called upon when we do throw the ball.
I'm going to name off some of your linemen: John Quinton, Cam Traw, Aiden McHale, Greg Fulmer, Jaden Carter, and Braylon Smith. What have you liked from your offensive line so far?
A lot of those guys started last year, so we have a lot of experience in the offensive line, and it's one of the bigger lines we've had in a while. So, we're real pleased. That's been probably the number one strength of our team this year. Even in our loss, we rushed for quite a few yards. Our offensive line did a real nice job. Some of the other areas we struggled in, but that's one area, and every single game our offensive line has kind of set the tone and allowed us to have a strong rushing game.
And finally, with your position groups, we have your kicker, Preston Shadle, 28 for 33 on point after kicks, or point after touchdowns. Wow. He has 45 kickoffs for 2,189 yards, 14 punts for 491 yards. What kind of reliability does he bring to this team, and how important is it?
Preston's worked extremely hard. Coming into last year as a first-year kicker for us, and then in the offseason he really put time into it, and he's much improved over last year. Gets the ball much deeper on kickoffs. His distance on punts is much better than it was, and he's just more consistent on place kicks also. He's just improved in all areas. So that was a problem at times last year with him being a first-year kicker and just not having much experience. This year it's been a strength for us.
At the beginning of the show, we talked about you're taking it year by year. What is one thing that you hope people to remember most about you whenever you leave Southern?
I never really look at that too much. I always kind of take the perspective that if I'm good with what I'm doing and if I please myself and I feel I'm doing things the right way, that's the most important thing. Because to be honest with you, just that we try to do things the right way, and that's a very vague term, but it is what it is. There's right and wrong, and we just try to do things at a high level and do things the right way. We try to instill a lot of work ethic and discipline and so forth. But the other thing I was going to mention is, in a program like ours, you have a lot of people out there that aren't pulling for you. Mm-hmm. When you have a lot of success, other than your own group and your own family, so to speak, our own football family, people outside the area, they're not throwing roses your way too often. They're looking for us to lose. But it is nice, like when I get out of the area, I mean, people out of the area know of Southern Columbia football, and they really respect the success we've had. So, I just want to, if anything, just that we always try to do things the right way and do things that were best for the kids involved in the program.
And you're always your toughest critic, as they say, and even in professional sports, I know I watch a lot of baseball, and they always say like they're not going to boo someone coming up to bat that isn't someone that's good, not a nobody, I guess.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I wish you luck this weekend against Montoursville. And with that was Southern Columbia's head coach, Jim Roth, and we're going to step aside, and we will return with Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel on 88.9 WQSU.
QSU Pigskin Preview, live from Buffalo Wild Wings.
And we're back on 88.9 WQSU for PA Pigskin Preview, hosted by myself, Brai Tate, and Matt Kaufman. We just had Southern Columbia High School head coach Jim Roth on, and now joining us is Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel to hear his picks for local high school football. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, and I always like when the all-time winningest coach is my opener.
Right? We'll get into his team later. Well, actually, we'll start off with last week with Southern. So last week overall you were 5-1 and actually picked Mifflinburg over Southern. But so Southern versus Mifflinburg, you picked Mifflinburg, of course, and Southern won 21-14. This was the game you were at too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I mean, Southern's defense played really well. I mean, from the beginning, they gave up a big play, and then they stopped two attempts at a touchdown from the one on the opening drive. I think they held Chad Martin to under for 50% passing. Their pass rush was outstanding. They had 6 sacks, and then they were just able to control the ball with the running game in the second half. They really struggled in the first half offensively. They came out on the first drive of the second half and went right down the field and scored on all running plays. They only threw 2 passes in the entire game and really controlled the clock in the second half. And now have set themselves up for the rest of the season. Montoursville this week, Bloomsburg next week, and Shikellamy at the end of the season, and they have themselves in a real good position to probably claim the top spot in Class 2A.
And we'll get to that Montoursville game later, but last week, Shamokin versus Williamsport. You picked Shamokin, and Shamokin won 42-7.
Yeah, Logan Steele had 4 touchdowns in that game, ran for 3. Actually, no, I think it was 5. He ran for 4 and then had a punt return for a touchdown. And, we talked last week that Tevin Miller, the Williamsport quarterback, had run for 160 and 180 yards in the last 2 weeks, and I think he had 11 against the Shamokin defense.
Wow.
So they really struggled offensively against that Shamokin defense, and once I think Shamokin ended up with 363 yards on the ground. And they're just playing real well right now, and that was their big issue. They were 7-0, but I think in the early part of the season they were really hurting themselves with mistakes, and that seems to have gone away. And now they're one of those teams that they have a fairly tough game this week with Loyalsock and of course the Coal Bucket, but they're in real good shape now to go 10-0 and get themselves in a real good position for as district playoffs roll around.
Next was Loyalsock versus Warrior Run. You picked Warrior Run, and they won 47-42. One of the closer games on my list today.
Yeah, and that looked like it was a real fun one up there. Warrior Run dominated the second half. I think they were down. I think it was tied, and they were able to hit a touchdown pass with no time left in the first half to take the lead. And then Denon Beetrell had three 1-yard touchdown runs. They ran. Denon Beetrell had 170, and I believe Tyler Ulrich had 150-some yards on the ground, and they really dominated up front. The only issue was they couldn't stop Loyalsock's big play. I think the Coates kid had a 50-yard touchdown run. They had 2 passes of over 60 yards, and that kind of kept them in the game. And, Warrior Run's another team. They have a rivalry game week 10, but they have also set themselves up to be 9-1, and there's a real good chance that we have a 9-1 Southern, 9-1 Warrior Run, and 9-1 Troy at the top of the 2A playoffs.
Speaking of Troy, the Class 2A, Troy versus Wellsboro, you picked Troy, and they won 53-7. Yeah,
and we're kind of wondering right now how good Troy is, just because, let's put it this way, they won the state title last year. They had graduation losses. They're still really good, but I don't think the Northern Tier is super great other than them in Athens right now this season, and they really dominated last week, and nobody's really tested them up there. So we'll see how that goes as we get closer to the playoffs.
The Class 3A matchup, Lewisburg versus Midwest. You picked Lewisburg, and Lewisburg won 35-7.
Yeah, and Lewisburg's big issue in their loss to Loyalsock 2 weeks ago is their passing game they struggled in their passing game, and they worked on that this week against Midwest. Jalen Walker had 3 touchdown catches. Xavier Carter threw 3, ran for 1, and they just played real well, and they kind of needed this one. They've had a lot of tough losses over these last 3 weeks, and to get a win should help them confidence-wise for the rest of the season.
And the final one I have for you from last week is another Class 3A matchup, Milton versus Central Columbia. You picked Milton, and they won in shutout fashion, 55-0.
Yeah, this is another team that needed a win and got it last week. And Monty Fisher was outstanding, over 200 yards rushing, accounted for 7 touchdowns, ran for 5, threw for 2 since he's moved to quarterback. And, I don't know if I talk so much about football. I don't know where I talked about this at. But Milton is one of those dark horse teams in the 3A that it's so jumbled in the back half with teams with a chance at a home game that, winning this one and, if they could somehow win at the last week of the season, they still have a chance to get themselves a home game for the District 4 Class 3A playoffs.
And now I'm going to pass it over to Matt to give you the games for this week.
So we got a couple of 6-1 matchups at the top. Montoursville at 3A, at 2A Southern Columbia. Which team are you looking forward to in the win column?
I think Southern's going to get that one. The winner of this one, Southern wins. They claim the Division II title alone. If Montoursville gets this one, Southern, Montoursville, and Mifflinburg will share it. I've seen Montoursville a couple times this year. Southern Columbia's strength kind of matches up to their strength, and I feel like the Tigers' defense is playing real well right now. And I'm not sure if the threat of the pass that Montoursville has is enough to, really put the fear into the Tigers' defense like Mifflinburg did last week. So I like Southern in this one. Montoursville, it should be a close one, but the Tigers have been playing really well. The defense is playing well. I think Coach Roth would like to see them throw the ball a little better than they have been the last couple of weeks. But with the way that running game's going, they should win this one.
Another good matchup. Shikellamy at 5-2, Bloomsburg at 6-1. Who do you think's coming out on top?
No idea, but that's why I'm here. This one I think was 38-30 in overtime last year. Most of the same players are back. I think I'm going to go with Shikellamy, but I do like, this is probably going to be one of the better games of the week. Both quarterbacks in different styles kind of do the same thing, though. Both are real big rushing threats, the best rushing threat for either team. I think it's going to be a question of if Bloomsburg can get enough stops of Thomas Pollock outside in the passing game, and kind of what Bloomsburg does or kind of what Schick's defense does with, it's not only quarterback run, they'll throw it to the Stewart kid in the outside, and then they make you cover the whole field, and you're going to have to do that against against Bloomsburg, and that's kind of how they wear you down. But I like Shikellamy in this one, but it's going to be a close one. And Bloomsburg is in a stretch right now. They got Schick this week, Southern next week, and then a rivalry game. So I think they feel like they need to get this one to kind of, hang in the Class 2A race with those other one-loss teams.
I'm glad we finally stumped you.
Hey, it happens.
Let's go to 4-3 South Williamsport against 5-2 Muncie. Who do you got coming out on top?
I like Muncie in this one. They've been playing well. Their two losses are to Warrior Run and to Montgomery, and other than that, they've been playing real well. We've talked about the South Williamsport team a couple times. It's not quite what it has been the last couple years. I don't think they're quite as big up front. Nor do they have that big 1,500-yard running back. So I like Muncie in this one, and South Williamsport. This is another one that's probably a close game. These two teams are rivals, close together. Should be a fun one, but I like Muncie in this one.
And last one, we got North Penn's Mansfield at 4-3 versus 6-1 Troy. Who do you got coming out on top?
I like Troy in this one. I think, we talked North Penn Mansfield a couple weeks ago. They were 4-1 going into that Warrior Run game, and Warrior Run really, for lack of a better term, pantsed them in that one. It was 35-0 before it was midway through the second quarter. And Troy's probably not a great matchup for them. Talking about Troy earlier, they're dominating up there. Mansfield is normally a passing team, and that really gives them a chance in some of these games. But they've been struggling on that side of the ball. And if you're going to try, and run against somebody like Troy, you're going to have the same problems they did against Warrior Run. So, yeah, like I said, I like Troy in this one a lot.
Are you going to be at the Schick game this week?
Yes, I am.
All right.
I am going to be at Schick Bloomsburg. It was either that one or Southern and Montoursville, but I'm going to see Southern and Bloomsburg next week. So.
Oh, okay. That'll be a good one. And we'll talk more about that next. Oh, wait. We don't have one next week.
Oh, we don't have one next week?
No, Susquehanna is on fall break.
Okay.
So maybe we'll get to that at some point.
Hey.
But I'll remind you.
Well, we still have to cover weeks.
Yes.
The week when 2 weeks, so.
Yes. Okay, well, that was Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel, and we're going to step aside for another break. And when we return, we will have Susquehanna captain Brian Layton on 88.9 WQSU.
Middle of the WQSU Pigskin Preview, live from Buffalo Wild Wings.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to PA Pigskin Preview. I'm Brai, joined by Matt Kaufman. We just had Southern Columbia head coach Jim Roth on and Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel, and now we have Susquehanna defensive lineman Brian Layton. Matt, take it away.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So let's kind of just go over the career that you've had here at Susquehanna. Really limited time in 2022 to now earning first-team All-Landmark and second-team All-Region honors. What was the biggest factor in your growth from the beginning of your career at Susquehanna to now?
I think the biggest factor in my growth was just, honestly, it's crazy to say, but getting hurt freshman year, hitting the reset button there and having some time to reflect and really working hard to get to where I am now. I think that's the biggest factor in my growth, just having a reset and working extra hard to surpass where I was freshman year.
Now, you had 12 tackles for loss a season ago, third most in program history. What allows you to be so effective in the backfield?
I think it's our defensive scheme, honestly. Just the way we move around a lot and all the movement we do with our stunts and blitzes. And then just having a bunch of guys around me that other teams have to worry about lets me come free a lot. And then I think my high motor as well, just getting past blocks and staying focused to make these plays definitely is the reason for that.
Now, Susquehanna has been one of the best defenses in the Landmark and really the region over the last few years. What is the mindset and the identity of how and why this defense is so good?
I think it's just that we treat each other like family. It really starts – it's not really all about being on the field. It starts in the spring when we're having morning runs and doing stuff on our own. I think building that trust with each other lets us play together as a unit on the field, and then it's just second nature. Just you're playing for the guy next to you. And then also just coaching. We're coached hard every day. We're coached hard in the film room. We're held to a higher standard, and I think that benefits us every day.
Now, one of the things that you were able to see last year was that kind of that postseason and play on that national level. What did that teach you about not only play on a national level, but being in such a competitive atmosphere, really those last 3-4 games of the season?
I think it really teaches you just how much harder you have to work to get to where we were and to get further than we were, The past couple of years we had early exits in the playoffs, and last year we were really just way more focused and didn't take anything for granted, and I think that taught us that we need to do that and more to get to where we were. Yeah.
Now, you've become one of the anchors of this defense, one of the leaders as a captain of this defense. How do you take that leadership role on and off the field?
Honestly, just being an open book for guys, not being unapproachable, making sure I'm talking to every single person on my team because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, we're family. I think it's easy to just stay in your little bubble and talk to your friends or your roommates that you live with every day, but it's making sure I'm talking to everybody top to bottom, new guys, older guys, creating that atmosphere so people can come up to me if they have questions about school or classes, anything about jobs, internships, and then that builds trust on the field. And then just like with the defense, how I said we're family there, it just translates on the field because they trust me there too. But that starts really in the spring and off the field.
Now, when you look back at your time at Susquehanna, what is it that you want to remember most?
I just want to remember having fun with my team. It's easy to get frustrated, and it's easy to look at things not in the big picture and just look at things in the smaller picture. But I just really want to remember times like going to CAF with my friends after practice, sitting in the meeting rooms 15 minutes before and just joking around, playing games on the whiteboard. Because playing football is so much fun, but I think just the connections I built with my teammates and with my coaches is very valuable, and I'll remember that for a very long time.
We got probably not one of my favorite segments that we've started here. It's called the Susquehanna Speed Run. So we're going to go through a series of questions, quick answers. So we're going to go from top to bottom. Favorite memory from the playoff run last year?
I think that has to be the last-minute field goal at St. John's. Just that was a great atmosphere. One of the best I've played in since I've been here, and just getting the win like that, and then everyone running on the field was just an electric feeling.
What's the best feeling for you? A sack, a tackle for loss, or forcing a fumble, or scooping and scoring his fumble?
I think I haven't scooped and scored yet. Hopefully that comes this year, but I think forcing a fumble is definitely the best because that means I get the offensive ball back and everyone's jumping around and having fun.
Who on the defense would you say brings the most energy in practice?
Oh, that has to be Steven Seibert. No
I think we've heard that one a couple of
Yeah.
times this year.
Yeah, Steven Seibert, he's crazy, but I love him. He's my roommate. Definitely Steve.
One word to describe this year's defense.
I think gritty, I think the grit that we face some adversity we haven't hit, and I think especially after this bye week, I think we all understand the message now, and I think gritty is a great way to describe that.
If you weren't playing defensive line, what position would you want to try?
I would have to say running back. Just getting the run downhill at people. I wouldn't be very shifty, but just running full speed at people would be very fun.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have another home game and open the conference this weekend. And with that, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we are going to have our roundtable discussion.
Support for WQSU and Riverhawk football comes from Buffalo.
We're back on 88.9 for the PA Pigskin Preview, and we just had Southern Columbia head coach Jim Roth and then Daily Item reporter Todd Hummel, and we just finished with senior defensive lineman Brian Layton, and now we will get into our roundtable discussion joined by AJ.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to start off with Penn State. Penn State fell to UCLA 42-37. A lot of upset Penn State fans, deservingly so, and falls out of the rankings. Matt?
Yeah, I will say I almost got to laugh at it because we talked about it last week, and it's kind of been almost like a running joke that I've had of not that Drew Aller hasn't been able to win the big game. Well, he hasn't been able to win the big games, but I made a joke the other day to one of my friends who's a real big Penn State fan. I said, it doesn't seem like he could win the easy ones either. I mean, this is a UCLA team that came in struggling. They won just one game this year. I mean, they had a couple of big opportunities. Allard had 2 touchdown passes. Katron Allen had 2 touchdowns. Penn State turned the ball over. But really, the reason I think UCLA won this football game was they dominated the time of possession. Absolutely dominated it offensively. They moved the ball efficiently. So did Penn State, but it just seemed that this UCLA Bruins team really wanted this win a little bit more. And you could tell by the way they came out of the tunnel. You could tell by how their first few drives went. This was a very highly dedicated Bruins offense.
I mean, Coach Franklin is 4-21 in big games. I wasn't expecting much out of him. I was hoping maybe a bounce back after the Oregon game, given the fact that they blew it. And I was looking at a stat, and I was telling Brai about it before the show, that Drew Aller, his touchdown to interception ratio going into the Oregon game was 5-4. So, like, not good. And he threw that one at the end of the game, and it just makes me believe that he's kind of not going to be the level Penn State needs. And I can't wait, I guess, for this year to be over with and get over that hump. But I will say I do like Katron Alling being the shocking running back, like primary running back coming out of the season, because everyone thought it was Nick Singleton. So I'm liking to see him stepping up.
Now moving into NFL, Steelers-Eagles. Steelers were on a bye week, but the Eagles, another frustrating loss. I know a lot of Pennsylvania sports fans, I guess, in general. We had the Eagles loss, the Phillies loss, the Penn State loss. So Broncos win 21-17 over the Eagles in Philadelphia. You want to start?
Yeah, I just got to say I called it. I said last week Denver could win this football game, and they did. Mm-hmm. And I can't even make the joke about not great to be a Philly fan. It's not great to be a New York fan either this past week. But I will say Denver played this game at a completely different level. This offense, J.K. Dobbins has been great this year. I think they ran the ball so efficiently. Bo Nix has really taken that step up for the Denver Broncos. But I want to point something out, and this really, really shocked me. Again, I talked about it last week about the rushing yards and kind of the rushing differential that they've had. I believe it was like 86 yards rushing a week ago in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. 45 total rush yards this past week, and 30 of them were from Saquon Barkley. It's either an injury that we don't really know about, or it's just Nick Sirianni and this offensive play scheme is not working. Yes, they're still 4-1. Yes, they gave up a good fight, but they didn't score in the second half, in that fourth quarter. But for this offense to have what probably should have been the NFL MVP last year in Saquon Barkley, have just 30 rush yards in the game and 45 total rush yards between Hurts and Saquon. But then you look at Jalen Hurts in the passing game. He threw for, I think it was 2 or 3 touchdowns, and he's one of the very few quarterbacks this year to not have an interception. And that's why I think they're 4-1.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is one of those quarterbacks that really doesn't have too many interceptions on their career, which I do appreciate. But I think the biggest thing we're seeing out of this Eagles offense is their offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. My opinion, he either needs to be fired or he needs to take a step back, because we're seeing Jalen Hurts start calling the plays on the field. He's not listening to him. And looking at the stats before coming into the show, Jalen Hurts is kind of up there with Saquon Barkley for rushing yards. So I do wonder if there is an injury that they're not talking about, because to go from your star player to now not really doing too much is a little bit shocking.
Yeah, I think the offense needs a little more chemistry and work that out a little bit. Let's go into last night, Monday Night Football. Another kind of surprising one. The Jags win 31-28 over the Chiefs.
I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. I don't think the Chiefs are at that level that they were at the last 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was, really ever since they won that first Super Bowl against the 49ers. But first of all, I got to say, how did Trevor Lawrence score on that last drive with that 30 seconds? I mean, he tripped twice and then dove for the end zone and scored. So great job by Trevor Lawrence. But it just seems like this defense of Kansas City continues to be beaten up. They continue to struggle down the stretch. Patrick Mahomes is continuing to make good plays. He's continuing to get the ball to his receivers. I mean, he had a play last night to, I don't remember what his first name is, but the last name's Thornton, one of their young wide receivers. He threw up I think it was like a 40-something yard pass, and they completed it. And it's just like, no one could do that. And they still did win this game. It just seems that this defense has continued to struggle week after week. And I don't know what it is, but the Travis Kelce effect continues to haunt Kansas City.
That haunted my fantasy last night. But Mahomes has more rushing yards than any of their running backs, which is what's really getting me because he's not a rusher. Kermit the Frog's not a rusher. I'll just say right here. And I'm just shocked by this, but he does have over 1,000 passing yards already on the season. It was like the first 2 games he was iffy, and then he kind of lit up here these last couple of games, but it's just he's got no help out there in the wide receiver. He went from amazing wide receivers to an old Travis Kelce and guys that Travis Kelce is injuring.
Yeah. I have one more quick point to add to that, too, about the running backs. To have Isaiah Pacheco be so successful the past couple of years and really just kind of shy away from him almost, it seems like, there's something's got to be fixed in that offense. And I personally think that Patrick Mahomes has to have a little bit more of a say in that. Yeah. Because, yes, as much as he's throwing the football, it has not been the success. They're 1-4 now, I believe, on the season. It has continued to be 2-4, I think now.
2-3.
2-3.
Yes.
It has continued to be a struggle for both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with the Isaiah Pacheco because he was a strong part of this offense last year, and now it's like he's kind of invisible now. Yeah. They're like using Mahomes as a running back, and I would like to see more of him because he is a younger guy. He's got potential. He's got to be able to give the chance to do it.
And a short week for the Eagles. The Eagles play the Giants on Thursday night. I know, Matt, you probably have a lot to say about this one.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things I want to start with. One, the reason the Giants lost that game against the Saints, 5 turnovers. I mean, if you don't turn the football over 5 times, you have a pretty good chance of winning this football game. New Orleans is a winless team going into it, but 5 turnovers, Scatterboo fumbles, Dart fumbles. I mean, the one that Dart fumbled just fell out of his hand on that run. A couple of interceptions. It just seems like you're gonna have those mental errors, and that is why you have 2 rookies on the field. Not that's why, but that's what you're gonna have to expect as a Giants fan and just watching NFL games. But when you look at this Giants defense, Thibodeau was quiet, Burns was quiet, Lawrence was quiet, Carter got a couple of pressures. They didn't get to Rattler. They didn't rattle him at all. And this Giants defense, we saw that in the win against the Chargers. They got pressure to the quarterback. They were able to make plays. They didn't do that against the Saints. Now, this defense also, they've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns this year against an Eagles offense and Saquon Barkley that's been struggling in the run game, it seems like, or just not using that production as much. I feel like this is a week Philadelphia really tries to run the football. One, because I'm pretty sure the game is at MetLife. So Saquon's homecoming again, going back to the Giants. But, again, this defense of the Giants, one, they're going to have to get pressure on Jalen Hurts. 2, if you could force Jalen Hurts, because we saw it last week what the Saints was able to do, forcing turnovers. If you could force Philadelphia to turn the ball over, the Giants, I'm not saying they will, but there's a good chance they could take an upset win with the way that Philadelphia looked this past Sunday against Denver.
I mean, and to my point, exactly. If the Eagles play like they did this past week, I think the Giants are going to get this, without a doubt in my mind. My only worry is, I guess, Jackson Dart being out there, but he's proven himself. He's not like Kyler Murray taking a football off the helmet like he did this week, so we got to give props where it could be.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, and I just think Malik Neighbors being out for you guys is going to be crucial against this game, against especially this Eagles secondary team that's been pretty much electric, I'd say, so far this season. So I'm worried about that. But like I said, if Eagles play like they did this past week, I don't foresee a win being put in their column.
And I was waiting to see if we were going to go take that step of getting another talented, I wouldn't say so talented, otherwise they'd be on a team, but at least a veteran wide receiver to kind of fulfill that spot of Malik Neighbors. And I said this earlier in the year, I wouldn't even care if it was Odell Beckham. If Odell came back, I'd be okay with
he's
that.
He's on a suspension right now.
Oh.
Well, all right, maybe when he's done with his suspension. But even guys like Gabe Davis as a veteran wide receiver, I believe he's in the Bills practice squad right now. But just to get a veteran presence wide receiver, someone that is going to help Darius Slayton because he has really struggled, especially with the catches. I mean, the one that the flea flicker wasn't a very clean throw by Jackson Dart, but that an inexcusable fumble, truly inexcusable fumble. It just drop passes. Wan'Dale Robinson hasn't been as much of an effect as they would have hoped for. Jalen Hyatt just hasn't seen the field as much. But I do got to say, I really like the way that they used Theo Johnson on those first 2 drives. I wish they continued to do that along with Daniel Bellinger and use those big body tight ends. But we'll have to see what they do against Philadelphia, who is it going to get to the quarterback, especially against the Giant offensive line?
I just think if the Eagles right now, if they lose this, see you guys again in 2 weeks. Giants are going to take that again at the link.
I don't think I've ever heard the words Eagles might lose against the Giants out of AJ's mouth. I'm just saying.
No, I haven't, and I'm sorry to say it to all our Eagles fans, but if this week I really has left a really bad taste in my mouth for this Eagles team.
And next Sunday, the Browns play the Steelers in conference matchup.
Yeah, so, I mean, we just saw, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Joe Flacco just got traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. We know Joe Burrow's going to be out for at least 3 months. So right now we're kind of going to see it's going to be Dylan Gabriel against Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure they're going to meet at the middle of the field at the end of the game and kind of have a nice little conversation about just how I guess you can continue to develop so-and-so. But I really want to see how this Browns team faces against this Steelers defense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the Steelers defense is going to get him rattled early. But I also feel like Pittsburgh has not, and we've talked about this the last few weeks, Pittsburgh has not shown that they could be a top contending team. Yes, the defense has played well. Yes, the offense has won them. The defense has won them games. Aaron Rodgers has not done that, I don't think. And against a Browns team and a very young quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, you know how badly he's going to want to go into Pittsburgh and beat Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean, all our WQSU listeners know how I feel about Aaron Rodgers. It's no surprise. I think he's playing, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's playing well for his old man age. However, he's not getting it done. I think, and we can debate this, the biggest crash out in all the NFL, Metcalf being there, he's been the lead. But regardless, I think the Steelers have been playing well offensively and defensively. It's just, I don't know if it's enough to lead them to pass the first round in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Anything else we would want to add about the NFL in the last 2 minutes?
Yeah, I saw this stat the other day, actually. This is going to blow your mind. I know that. So four teams had winning records, more than four, but these four specifically had winning records last year. Kansas City, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, Houston Texans have a combined record of 7-13 this year. There are four teams that had losing records last year. More than four, but in this case. Indianapolis, who's, I believe, now 4-1. Jacksonville, who's 4-1. Pats are 3-2. 49ers are 4-1, I believe. A 15-5 record combined between those four teams. Absolutely unbelievable to see. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, that is insane. And I'm just going to say quickly, Colts. I like that Tyler Warren's getting it done for the Colts in that tight end position.
I think Indiana Jones has done a great job. Daniel Jones has done a phenomenal job.
Indiana Jones. Well, if you want to hear more about NFL, you can tune in tomorrow from 8 to 9. AJ is hosting an NFL show. And in front of us tonight, we have the Game 3 of the Yankees and Blue Jays. So if you want to hear about MLB, tune in on Thursday. I will be hosting an MLB show. But other than that, thank you for listening to another week of PA Pigskin Preview. I'm Brai, and tonight I was joined by Matt Kaufman and AJ Knorr. We had Southern Columbia head coach Jim Roth on, Todd Hummel from the Daily Item, and Brian Layton, Susquehanna defensive lineman.